It's a Monday, the start of a new week with plenty of stuff to discuss on the business show today. Brought to you as usual by Capital Legacy. They've got over 900 brokers countrywide who are waiting to take your call on anything to do with wills and estates. And they proudly are the people who bring you Chris Gibbons, our business guru. Chris, let's start today with the story that you touched on last week, the upsurge in violence in KwaZulu-Natal allegedly flowing from the arrest of former President Jacob Zuma. Now looks like it's really spreading countrywide, and it's becoming more criminality and looting by the look of things. The impact of that on business, Chris?
Jeremy, yes, greetings to you. As I'm sure you've seen and heard from various of the news sources, widespread violence in many parts of the nation, not just KZN. Shops, shopping malls looted, over 60 people arrested so far in various parts of the country. Parts of Johannesburg also affected. Now, the impact of that on business generally, business confidence, will be high, but particularly on retailers and truckers and road freight. Both the N2, the N3, the critical N3 Durban-Johannesburg route have been affected by these people allegedly protesting the Zuma arrest. The N3, as we report, as we speak, still closed. No taxis operating at the moment in KZN either. More than 30 trucks, big trucks, fully laden, have been destroyed, either wholly burnt out or badly damaged. Now, a statement from Gavin Kelly. Gavin Kelly is the CEO of the Road Freight Association, says small business owners have lost everything, their business, their vehicles, and the loads they were carrying. Their employees now face what he calls the ogre of unemployment. But warns Kelly the effects on the freight industry are reverberating far past Moy River. Cargo owners, he says, now looking for alternative routes through Angola, Namibia, Mozambique, and even further north. South Africa's image, says Kelly, as a safe, secure, efficient, and desirable business destination for trade, manufacturing, investment, and development is gone, in his opinion. And he's calling on government, President Ramaphosa, ministers of police, transport, to put together an effective plan to stop these actions. Now, if you think Kelly is overstating it, he's not. The violence has made many international news sites too. For example, it's item number 3 right now on the front page of The Economist's daily newsletter.
Not a good position for South Africa to be in. And let's not forget that all of this happening against the background of COVID and the extended level 4 lockdown as well.
Well, let's just give you a couple of the current headlines from Business Day. Alcohol and leisure sectors warn of death knell for recovery as level 4 extended. Fin24, show us scientific evidence. Alcohol industry says consultation with government was a sham. And they report that the Beer Association of South Africa to submit an urgent application under the Promotion of Access to Information Act to obtain data and evidence that contributed to the decision to extend the booze ban. The association argues 4,600 jobs plus on the line.
Yeah, it does seem a little bit ridiculous to me that on the one hand you can go into a Pick n Pay and go shopping with a whole lot of other people. You can't go next door to the Pick n Pay liquor and buy anything, which you would essentially have to consume by yourself or with your own family at home, because you can't go out and there's a curfew. So it's a bit ridiculous. We've got the liquor industry and the restaurants on one hand saying their businesses are dying. And on the other hand, government insisting that a ban on the sale of alcohol is necessary. Who's right here and who's wrong?
Jeremy, as you say, a lot of argument back and forth, but we now have a solid study from the South African Medical Research Council and the University of Cape Town. And it shows that yes, a ban on alcohol sales does work, but only if it's an absolute ban. No alcohol sales at all, like the one we're enduring at the moment. A partial ban, say booze sales on the first 4 days of the week, or a booze ban just in restaurants, can sell nowhere else, that kind of thing, that does not work. The study was conducted by Tom Moultrie, who's the director of UCT's Center for Actuarial Research, and it looked at what's known as unnatural deaths. The numbers when movement was severely restricted and alcohol sales banned completely, unnatural deaths fell 49%. When there was just a ban accompanied by a curfew, unnatural deaths came down by 26%. When there was partial or no restrictions on the sale of alcohol, then there was no decline in unnatural deaths. The problem government is facing now is that the study I've just quoted from does not cover the current period. We've been in lockdown level 4 with a full ban on the sale of alcohol, sale of booze prohibited, and the infection rate is rising. It is not falling. Big question mark there. Now, with regard to restaurants, a paper published in the journal Emerging Infectious Diseases shows how one diner at a restaurant in Wuhan in China, which of course the epicenter of the pandemic, infected 9 other people. Not by breathing on them, but just simply sitting in the restaurant and the restaurant's air conditioners circulating his particles of virus, and he infected 9 other people. Okay, 73 other diners at the restaurant were not affected, but it's very clear that booze or no booze, you do not want to be eating inside a closed up room with a bunch of strangers or even close family if they're not in your bubble. Outside, fresh air, bit of a breeze blowing, yes, but of course in winter, on a freezing Johannesburg night, or down here in the Western Cape, torrential rain howling in at Arctic temperatures off the Atlantic, that's not really much fun, is it? And the same, of course, applies to the taxi industry. You can get into a fully laden taxi, go where you want, more or less. That's a death trap, absolute death trap. So, to answer your original question, has the government got it right? If the objective is to lower the unnatural death rate and free up space in hospital emergency rooms, probably yes. But if the objective is to prevent the spread of the disease, almost certainly not. But here's one final reflection, Jeremy, for you with your Eastern Cape links. Final reflection on the booze ban. The price of pineapples has gone up 74% since the latest ban was introduced. We're back to brewing our own.
A couple of big acquisitions have just been announced, starting with Imperial Logistics.
Yep, indeed. Imperial's directors have given the green light to a 12.7 billion rand bid for the company by DP World in cash, nogal. DP World, Dubai Ports World, one of the biggest logistics companies in the world. They turn over about $8.5 billion a year, about 122 billion rand. It is a good deal for Imperial's shareholders. They've had a bit of a rough time over the past few years. It represents a premium of just under 40% on the current share price. Immediately the deal was announced, the share price of Imperial went up 33.7%. Still has to be approved by the Competition Commission, but I can't see any reason why it wouldn't go through. DP World interested in Imperial as a gateway to Africa, but don't forget, this also represents a significant inbound investment for us here in South Africa.
Other interesting one is Yuppie Chef, bought by Mr. Price.
Indeed, yes, this is a curious one. Not in the same league, obviously, as the Imperial DP World deal. This is just 500 million rand, although that in itself is not a bad return for the 3 young men who founded Yuppie Chef, I might add. The deal itself was announced a while back. It's just been approved by the Competition Commission. What catches my attention here in this one, Jeremy, is the positioning of the 2 brands. You have Mr. Price, which is unashamedly a value retailer. Its name says it all, Mr. Price, okay? Yuppie Chef, another company whose name also says it all. Expensive, upmarket kitchen equipment, exotic ingredients, fancy place settings, now upmarket household goods as well. You want a Heston Blumenthal Hubble electric ignition charcoal braai? Well, Yuppie Chef is the place to go, but be prepared to shell out 60,000 rand for the privilege of owning one of those gadgets. Mr. Price and Yuppie Chef operating in completely different parts of the retail spectrum. I wonder if the 2 cultures won't sooner or later clash. It's a bit like Walmart buying Christian Dior. I'm not saying it won't work, but I am saying I'm going to be watching it very carefully.
And I see the Nigerians are at it again.
Yeah, we often talk about South Africa's problems and whether or not we are an attractive place in which to do business. Well, the way the Nigerians behave make us look like sweethearts, in my opinion. The latest victim, if I can call them that, MultiChoice, which has just been hit by Nigeria's tax authorities with a bill for 63 billion rand. Please, unpaid taxes, they allege. The Nigerians contend MultiChoice has not allowed them to access records for auditing. And if they say the company has not paid VAT since it started operating there some years ago. Rubbish, says MultiChoice. Of course we have paid our taxes.
It's not the first time it's happened to a big South African company, though.
Well, most observers believe that this is just the latest in a long line of stings, which take place whenever the Nigerian government runs short of cash. Last South African company to get hit this way was MTN. Huge bill, fines were thrown at them. They eventually negotiated it down to something manageable. Some reply, look, this is just the cost of doing business in Nigeria. That's the way that country works. Don't forget, there's been a very long line of big South African players. Mr. Price, we mentioned a moment ago, Truworths, Woolies, ShopRite, Telkom, Tiger Brands, Nando's. They've all fallen by the Nigerian wayside. Nigeria has some major structural problems, including an economy that's dependent on oil exports. But even so, a government that raids foreign companies when it needs extra cash, well, I certainly would not invest there.
Okay, well then where would you invest?
Good question. What is the current trend, the current shift? It's all about climate change and the shift to green, moving away from carbon emissions to renewable energy. And I think there's real pressure building for this to happen faster. And I think South Africa is in a position, although we're behind the curve in terms of the ANC's addiction to coal, we're in a position to pivot quite quickly. We had reports this week about Durban, eThekwini to be more precise, putting out an RFI for power supply independent of Eskom, much of that to be renewable. We also had an interesting story in Business Day reporting that we have a pipeline of 184 renewable energy projects that would add 10.3 gigawatts of power generation capacity to plug the country's supply gap. Story says this finding is part of a study conducted by EY Parthenon, which is the consulting arm, or one of the consulting arms of EY, financial services firm. Of those 184 projects, 94 are power generation projects dominated by solar and wind. Another 79 are in the transmission and distribution segment. 11 are storage projects. Remember, as we reported last week, there's plenty of funding available for green. Institutions like the IMF, the World Bank, and so on are happy to dip their hands into their very deep pockets. This EY study, for example, funded by the EU Carbon Commission.
But from an investment point of view, doesn't this mean that the whole green power sector, the renewables, is already a very contested space? Some people could even say it's overcrowded.
Jeremy, that I think is a fair comment, but if you look carefully, you'll find a number of funds, some active, some passive, which operate in this space. So you'd be investing in the industry rather than in any individual company. As always, if you do want to play in this arena, please consult your investment advisor because every individual's needs are different. I am not offering you investment advice. We're not licensed to do that, but these are things I am certainly watching at the moment. However, here's one to think about. If you do want to play in the startup arena, or out on the bleeding ledge, as it's sometimes called, have a look at concrete.
Concrete? That's about as dirty as coal, surely.
Which is exactly why we need to think about it. The concrete industry accounts for 2.6 billion tons of carbon dioxide each year. That's about 6% of total global emissions. Wow. And as the Financial Times reminds us this week, if concrete were a country, it would be the fourth biggest emitter in the world, just behind India, but ahead of Russia and Japan, which is why a number of startups are trying to produce low carbon concrete, low carbon cement. They're also being backed by some of the very big names: Bill Gates's Breakthrough Energy, Amazon's Climate Pledge Fund, venture capitalist John Doerr, legendary venture capitalist from Kleiner Perkins. Some very big traditional players are also working there: Switzerland's Holcim, Germany's Heidelberg Cement, to name but two. Here's the question: why is cement so ugly? Why is it so difficult to decarbonize? Well, the main ingredient in cement is something called clinker, and that's made from limestone, which is heated in a kiln. As the limestone heats, it releases a lot of carbon dioxide and changes its structure. So for every 10 tons of cement produced, 6 tons of carbon go into the atmosphere. That's truly horrible. And that's why, according to the FT, more than $100 million US in venture funding has gone to cement startups in the last 12 months alone. You might want to think about looking around South Africa, seeing what's happening in that sphere, if that's of interest to you.
Okay, so there we go. Christopher Gibbons goes off and makes his investment in concrete, makes a huge fortune of money. Where would you go and spend it?
From your lips to his ears, Jeremy, absolutely. Well, think about what's just happened. Sir Richard Branson has just gone to the edge of space aboard his Virgin Galactic spaceship. Some 600 people are now ahead of me in the queue to get on board that spaceship, but I would quite fancy a trip up there. 600 people, they have paid deposits that will eventually see them getting on board the Branson Virgin Galactic at $250,000 per seat. Okay, now if you've made a couple of billion, that's chicken feed, but certainly I haven't made that yet in any kind of investment, let alone concrete startups. So Branson gets to the edge of space first. He's going to be followed by Jeff Bezos of Amazon, and presumably at some stage Elon Musk. Musk was in the audience waiting for Branson to get home yesterday. They are apparently big buddies. So yeah, what's the old saying from Star Trek, Jeremy? To boldly go where no man has gone before. In this case, should that perhaps be to boldly spend where no one has spent before?
Or to boldly check and make sure that your will and your estate are in the right place and get hold of Capital Legacy. Chris Gibbons, thank you very much for your input today. We'll catch up with you next Monday.
Cheers, Jeremy. Thank you.
And that's it from us for this Monday. Hope you enjoyed that insight. I certainly did. And we'll catch you with Capital Legacy once again next Monday, right here on Mansfield Today. Cherry bye.